Hey everybody, Chris here with Sling SEO. I am doing some of an impromptu recording to go over the GSA SER settings right now. I will normally be in front of a more professional green screen, but I had some problems recording and wanted to get this done for you guys really quick. GSA SER Search Engine Ranker is a highly powerful but highly complicated link building software. There's a really big learning curve when you're getting started, but once you finally figure it out, it can pretty much be run on autopilot. There's times when I go for days without logging into my VPS to check on it because I know that it's running perfectly, but it took me months to get to the point where I finally understood it, and a lot of frustration, couple weeks of a lot of pain and frustration really trying to figure this software out. And a lot of GSA really comes down to your settings. Having the right settings will carry you really far when you're trying to build links with this software. So I want to get right into it. Right here, we have just the first 5 categories. This is the first one that you'll see. You have the number of threads to use. That's basically how many different processes SER is running at the same time. I typically use anywhere from 10 to 20 times the number of private proxies that I'm using. I'll show you guys those in a second, but right now I'm using 10 private proxies for submissions. So I'm using about 150 threads right here. I don't know if that's per second or just at a time or whatever, but it has a big influence on how fast GSA runs and also how much stress it puts on your CPU. If you try to put it too high, it'll crash GPS or crash SER. It might crash your server. So do some different tests, but for the most part, you typically want to run about 10 to 20 times the number of submissions that you're doing, or 10 to 20 times the number of private proxies you're using for submissions, mainly so you don't put too much stress on your proxies with the ISPs. The second setting right here is your HTML timeout. This is how long the system waits for a page to load before it moves on to the next one. If I'm in the lower ranges, like when I first got started, if I was using 60 threads, I would do 60 seconds, 90 threads, 90 seconds. Now that I'm in slightly higher ranges, there are people who do much higher, 500, 800 threads. I do it at 120 seconds. If there's really no reason to go above 120 seconds unless you're, excuse me, running over about 300 threads. If you get to the 300 threads point, then you can do 150 or 180 seconds. I think 180 is the highest you can do. But if you're doing anything really under 200, there's no reason to go over 120. The higher you put that number, the longer the system waits before it frees up another slot. So if you have that number really high, it's going to slow your system down. Down here next we have the private proxies, or just the proxy section in general. I struggled with this for the longest time, and once I finally got dedicated private proxies, SER took off and really started building links a lot faster than what it had been doing. They talk about this all over the GSA SER forums. You have to use private proxies. You absolutely have to. If you are still wasting time scraping public proxies and trying to scrape the search engines with publics and submit with publics and check your email with public proxies, it's just going to slow it down. They're going to be banned. They're going to be banned. They're just not going to run that fast. One thing you will see right here is that I have PR checking set to public. That's not entirely true. What I do here is I use shared private proxies for PR checking. If you've been running SER for a while, you know that using doing PR checking can get your proxies banned really fast. So I separate the proxies that I use for scraping and submitting from the proxies that I use for checking PageRank. So in here you'll see by proxy shared. Those are my shared proxies from byproxies.org. And then what I do, these are private. So when I upload them, they're marked as private over here, but I change them over to public so that GSA doesn't get confused. Excuse me, I just do Control A to select all, and then right here, toggle private public. So this basically tells SER that these proxies are public. Even though they're private, SER thinks they're public now. So then I'll go back in and add my actual dedicated private proxies, and these stay on the private setting, marked by the X right here. So right now I've got 20 shared private proxies in there for PageRank checking, and the 10 dedicated private proxies that I use for submitting, verifying, and scraping the search engines. Whoops, I want to go back here. So despite having this box checked, I am in fact running everything on private proxies. I use different ones for PR checking so that my main proxies don't get banned. Moving on to the next section. Really quick. Custom time to wait between search engine queries. This is kind of a topic of debate. There's some people who uncheck this box and let it hit the search engines every second. If you do that, your proxies will get banned really fast. There's a lot of different ways to go about this. I'm doing tests between 90 and 120 seconds right now. I was running them at 60 seconds, which is what Sven recommends, the guy who created SER. But even running them at 60 seconds, I was getting banned a lot. So right now I'm testing between 90 and 120 seconds on about 120 to 130 different English-based search engines. And my next test is going to be running it between 120 and 180 seconds and only targeting Google. If you've been doing this for a while, you know that the footprints for the engines are not recognized by every search engine. So when you're doing in URL or I can't think of them off the top of my head, but some of the different footprints with quotations and stuff like that, the other engines like AOL and Excite and all those random ones, they won't acknowledge the footprint. So the results that you get won't be as relevant, and you're basically just wasting your bandwidth when you use those engines. So I'll be doing some tests and releasing the results later to see how low I can get this to only target Google without my proxies getting banned. Right now, I've got it at 120 and it's running pretty well. As far as CAPTCHA, I use CAPTCHA Breaker. I don't have any backup service, so if CAPTCHA Breaker fails, it just moves on to the next one. It's a one-time fee. If you use any of dCAPTCHA or any of these other services, you're going to be spending a lot of money on CAPTCHA breakers. I'd rather submit a higher volume and just have them fail. Right now, my CAPTCHA breaker is converting about 90% of the ones that I submit. So I can deal with losing those 10% and not having to pay extra money for dCAPTCHA or any of those services. For indexing, I don't use indexing really. I have GSA SEO Indexer, and just as far as these settings right here, if you have this box clicked, this will submit your backlinks to these blog search engines. I personally don't really care. I index my links other ways, which I'll get into at a later date. I do have SEO Indexer because sometimes if my anchor text ratios get out of whack and I want to build some de-optimized anchor links, or I want them to get indexed really fast, I will turn this on so that all my T2 links get sent to GSA or sent to SEO Indexer. But usually what I'll do, because I don't want all of my campaigns to send the T2 links in there, so I'll just select the T2 campaigns that I want and go through and manually hide them. Do the right click over here, show URLs, verified, export them, just save it to my desktop, and then I'll import them manually into SEO Indexer so I don't have to deal with every campaign that I'm running submitting my links. I typically don't like SEO Indexer. I index my links using blog comments, image, video comments, and trackbacks. As far as the filter setting, this is pretty much the out-of-the-box setting. Sometimes I'll adjust this upwards or downwards. It really doesn't matter what you do here. You want to keep it above 2, but if you start to get too high, it'll tie back in to that whole HTML timeout thing. And if you're downloading large websites, it's going to take longer to load. So you're going to be tying up your threads with this HTML timeout thing. A 1 megabyte or 2 megabyte site is going to load faster than an 8 or 10 megabyte site. So if you have this number set really high, it's going to slow down your threads. In addition, one of the theories is that larger websites can be just saturated with blog comments and stuff like that. That might be a reason for it being a large file. So 5 is probably even a little high. I could probably run it down to 3, but it doesn't have a huge impact on my submission ratings. And advanced settings in here, I only save successful and verified sites. Even the successfully submitted ones, it's debatable whether you need to save those. You always want to save your verified sites. And in here, you really don't need to touch any of this. When you're just getting started, if you're having a lot of problems, what you can do is run it in debug mode right here, and then it'll pop up this box and take it off transparent form. And you'll typically do this when you already have your campaigns running. I have mine turned off so that it reacts faster right here. But you'll get a log of all the different stuff that's going on, and then you can filter it by the message here. And for example, if your proxies are getting blocked a lot, you can filter it and just see what percentage or how often it's happening, and then you can tweak your settings to see how long, for example, you need to wait between search engine queries to prevent your proxies from getting blocked, etc., etc. So that's it for the basic settings right here. It took me a really long time to figure out kind of just how to get it right. I cannot stress how important it is to use private proxies. If you are scraping public proxies and using them, you're wasting your time. And even if you're submitting and scraping the search engines with shared private proxies, you don't know what the other people who are on those proxies are doing. They're probably doing the same exact thing, might be doing Scrapebox or XRumor. So you want to have dedicated private proxies for everything but PR checking. I already explained that earlier. So that is about it. That was a very basic introduction to setting up your settings. In the next few coming months and weeks, or weeks and months, whatever, I'll be releasing more advanced tutorials getting into some of the more specific settings, how to scrape lists, and how to really get GSA to fire fast so you can do some super powerful tiered link building. That is it today. Thank you for watching, and make sure to subscribe for our future videos. Take care.